What's up, Bay Area? Welcome to Talk Back, representing your issues, your voices, your words, and your concerns, looking at local art and politics in your neighborhood. And here's your hosts, Anthony and Michelle.
Hey guys, welcome to Talk Back. Hey lady, how you doing?
It's good to be here with you underneath this heated lamps and lights.
I know, it's a little hot up here, but I am so thrilled to have Charity Twos, our resident feminist, here in the studio, because it's nice to have another lady next to me sometimes, you know?
And today's subject is women in prison. But if you are missing Anthony, check out Peralta.tv, send him an email, let him know how much you love him, and he will be back next time.
We thought we'd give him a break today, but seriously, go to Peralta.tv. You can check out some past episodes with Anthony in it, or send him an email, but you should definitely go to Peralta.tv. So hey, I am so fired up because we're talking about a very provocative issue. We're talking about women in prison. Did you know $35 billion nationwide goes to prisons? $7.5 billion just in California goes to prisons. That $7.5 billion is more than we spend on all the combined colleges and universities in California. What is wrong with that?
There's a lot wrong with that. And also, 80,000 women are in prison with children that they can't access. But today, we're going to be looking at some organizations that are doing amazing work to make change in this area, to break down the prison industrial complex, to make it happen, to change legislation. So
that's right. Get fired up, sisters, because for every California state dollar, 10 cents goes to prison.
Talk about fired up. This woman in this feature, Cynthia Chandler, won the Leadership Award in 2005 for advocating for women in prison. Check her out.
She cripples herself, carrying heavy loads of guilt. Shame has turned her image into shards of rain. Can't remember the girl this woman used to be, but remembers mistakes made vividly, and moments when she should have followed her instinct and turned left instead of right into the arms of enforcers, pulling her into black holes where she hears the voices.
We're in the midst of an enormous prison boom. The numbers of women in prison has jumped by over, I think, 800% in the last 20 years. And that increase is not because people are doing violent crimes at a higher rate. It's specifically because of the war on poverty, the war on drugs, and very much like war on communities of color. One woman that I'm working with is serving a 6-year sentence in prison, separated from her small children, for stealing pantyhose to go to a job interview. And her only prior offense is stealing hot dogs to feed her kids.
For many of us who are now adults, we struggle to stay young and wait for our parents to come home. I got clear about this for myself. I saw a father, a beautiful black man with this little brown baby, swirly baby, just like me, mixed. You could tell she was mixed. And she was about 5 or 6. And the father was holding a pole, and she was holding his hand, and he kept telling her to hold the pole. And she kept kind of, ignoring him. And you know how 6-year-old girls are, and they just, she was just kind of dancing and being sweet. And he kept telling her, you need to hold the pole. And she said, Daddy, I don't need to hold the pole. I'm holding your hand. And I cried, and my mom looked at me and said, what's the matter? Because I was never going to get there again. My childhood died.
Sometimes children go to other families. Families don't get the same kind of support and funding as foster parents usually do, unless a family member is able to go through that whole process. But if someone has a record themselves, even if it's for very minor offense, it becomes almost impossible to become a foster placement. And so families that might have had someone, a grandparent who might have had a record from something that happened literally 40, 50 years ago, sometimes will find it very hard to be able to take care of their own grandchild.
My mother and father was taken away from me when I was only 7 years old. I remember we used to say every night before we go to sleep, see you later, alligator.
She born on U.S. soil unlike she ancestors be. Woe begone from love, drums, grandmother's tribal songs. Learn she no self-love, reverence, respect for soul or self. Womankind passage denied, question lied generations too. She be survivor.
So one of the things that we did with several organizations is we organized the first ever legislative hearings where legislators from California actually went into 2 women's prisons in California and heard directly from the women themselves about horrible, really horrible human rights abuses happening inside the prison. And the women were able to testify about experiences of sexual abuse at the hands of guards and prison staff.
I'm not here for medical. The rest of my people here, they can speak on medical. You need to know how sex goes on in this institution and how we get abused and get talked to. And I ain't scared. If I die tomorrow, too bad. At least I'll be free. You guys need to know that. We report things in here, you know what happens? They cuss us out, call us bitches, slam our doors, tear up our rooms. They prey on us. And you got these nuts working over us. But we supposed to be criminals? We supposed to be the bad ones? What kind of, I want you to tell me, what kind of correction do you give me when your penis is up in one of us? What correction is that? How are you disciplining me when my dress is up behind me and you screwing me? What kind of discipline is that?
The room that they threw me in, that girl, Barbara, from San Francisco, I knew her. She died. I was on the top bunk. She was on the bottom bunk. She died. And she banged on that door before she died. They would not open that door. She was hyperventilating. So the only thing the guard did was throw a bag in there and said, blow in this bitch.
My name is Marva Wallace. I'm 42 years old, and I'm serving a 27 to life sentence for the murder of my husband in first degree. The abuse became worse. It started off with little slaps, and then it was punches and kicking. I wore a black eye like it was part of my makeup. By the time one got healed, I had another one. And one night, he came home. He had been gone for 2 or 3 days, and he would always come home and wanted me to have sex with him and stuff. And I told him I didn't want to be bothered because I didn't know where he had been. And he told me that I belonged to him once I married him, and that piece of paper proved that I was his, and he could do whatever he wants with me.
I think it was one of the only times that many of the women who participated ever experienced being believed by anyone in a position of authority, and it really highlighted how so many of these abuses happen with total impunity, where there's no state accountability, and where we sort of take for granted that prisons are a horrible place but don't take any real community responsibility for that happening.
Women prisoners under attack! What do we do?
Act up, fight back! Healthcare is a right! Healthcare is a right!
How could there be ways in which people would be held responsible for what they do, but be asked to give something positive back to a community rather than removing them and draining the resources out, is really intriguing to a lot of people who have never felt like they could access the criminal justice system the way it is now.
Hey, so we're back. So women in prison is a tough, provocative issue, but beyond the sadness, beyond the anger, there's stories of survival, there's stories of dedication, and there's stories of achievement. So let's get into it. Hey, Linda Evans, I'm happy that you're here sitting next to me, and I know that you work with the California Coalition for Women Prisoners.
Yes.
Well, welcome. So tell me a little bit about California Coalition for Women Prisoners.
California Coalition for Women Prisoners, or CCWP as we call it.
Thank you. CCWP, okay.
Is a 10-year-old organization. It was started primarily through the efforts of women inside who were speaking out, as was featured on your feature, about medical care and medical conditions and the abuse of medical care for women and for all prisoners. And I think your audience may know that actually it's escalated to such a point the problem with medical care in the California system, that now the whole medical system has been put under receivership of a federal judge, Stelton Henderson. And it no longer is under the control of the California Department of Corrections. So California Coalition for Women Prisoners has been advocating for women prisoners for the last actually 11 years. And we take visits regularly into the prison. There are several visiting teams. It's very, very important that people have support from the outside.
That's why we're happy to have you here, and thank you so much for educating me a little bit about the coalition. I'll pick your brain a little bit more later.
Yeah, it's great to have you here, Linda. We're also here with Linda Walker and Marilyn from All of Us or None. So give us a sense of what the mission of All of Us or None is. Go ahead.
The mission of All of Us or None is twofold. One is to educate the public, to let them know about some of the discrimination laws that are currently on the books. The second is to give us back some of our rights. The reason why it started was because we found that the politicians were doing nothing to help us. And we basically got tired of it. And we decided that, you know what, we have quite a bit of skills and we should be able to come together and just figure this all out. And the way that I got involved is because even though I went to prison and got out, got off parole, did everything that was that I was told to do, I'm still being held accountable. And so we said, well, we're going to come together and you need to free all of us or none of us.
That's so fantastic. And Marilyn, you're also part of this organization. And I know that all of you went to Sacramento last week to get your voices heard. So earlier you were mentioning a little bit about Proposition 36. Give us a sense of what that is and what you're fighting for with that.
Well, Proposition 36 is a program that the city or the state have come up with to help, supposedly to help prisoners that have not exactly became a prisoner yet, but have been part of the court system or have been in a county jail, to where they have a program to go to. Instead of just saying, okay, you have a drug problem, we're going to just throw you in jail. Well, they're trying to find out if they can help some of these people with these drug problems get rehabilitated through their drug usage. So that's what Proposition 36 is about.
Basically, basically, they finally got a clue that just locking us up is not going to resolve the problem. That we need help. Right. That we need help in recovery. And so, and hopefully they're also realizing that it's a lot cheaper to put somebody into a recovery house and to give them the support that they need in recovery rather than to lock a person up. Because if there's not as much drugs in jail, it's probably more. It's as much going on behind bars as there is going out there on the streets. And so they basically finally got a clue, thank God.
That's why people are going back to prison. I mean, isn't that kind of like the proof is in the pudding? I mean, you're incarcerating people, what are you getting out of this? Coming right back. More money dumping into it.
Well,
doesn't make any sense.
They don't have many programs for prisoners that come out of prison. They have some. But even the people that go to prison and they come out, they have no resources. Most of them lose their homes, their jobs, their families. They lose everything when you're in prison. When they come out, they have absolutely nothing. What, $200 gate money? Come on, spend 13 years, 25 years, 10 years, 8 years, a year in prison. You lost everything and they want to give you $200 gate money. Then they take money out of that to make you pay for your ticket home. So what are you coming out with?
Not to mention, once you come out, you have to check a box, right? Every time you apply for a job, or you can't get student loans. And so it seems like a system that just keeps perpetuating itself that doesn't advocate for you all. So I know that you also have this Ban the Box program. Talk to the viewers a little bit about that.
Okay. Basically, what banning the box is there is a box that is on the applications for the FOSTA loan, for housing, for a job application that asks, have you ever been convicted of a felony? And that is just another form of discrimination right away, because most people who never been in trouble, if you check that box that said that you've been convicted of a felony, most of the normal people it's gonna scare them. A lot of the felonies that we are convicted of, it's not even really a serious felony. You know, it may be what's considered as a wobbler, meaning that it was a misdemeanor, but because you previously did time, then it automatically jumps it to a felony. But they don't give you any of that on the application. Only thing asks if you've ever been convicted of a felony.
So that's kind of what we were talking about earlier. So I guess you already answered my questions. Women that are in prison are it's due to nonviolent crimes. So there's huge misconception that women are being locked up for, you know, it's misdemeanors. That you go back and then it turns into a felony. I didn't know that. So.
What are we going to do as a society if we just keep throwing people, if they're poor or if they happen to have a drug problem or they can't feed their kids, if we keep throwing them in an institution? Like, this institution is not the solution to these problems. These are social issues that we need to face. So do any of your organizations talk or deal with some of these root causes that women are getting in prison because of some of these other social issues?
We think that eliminating discrimination against people that have been in prison is actually getting to some of the root causes of people going back to prison. Because if you are discriminated against because of a record, you can't get a job, you can't get a house, so you have no roof over your head, you can't get into school, you can't go visit your family.
There is one thing I didn't know about that. You can't get financial aid. You can't. I mean, there's a lot more that I wanted to ask you about, but let's take a look and see what some of the students out there are talking about as far as women in prison, what kind of questions they have.
What are you doing to help women in prisons rehabilitate while they are in prison in order to be able to transition back into society once they leave?
I'm just wondering about once women are in prison, women with children, is there any chance that they can still remain in a relationship with their child?
While in prison, what programs are available for women who are... What is going to happen to them when they need to adjust to society, to integrating back into society?
So those were some student questions. What I'm most interested in talking about is, what about if you have kids in prison? I know both of you are mothers, so can you give us a little bit of your experience of how it was as a mother being incarcerated?
My experience as a mother was there was literally no relationship with my child. Unfortunately for women who are in prison, most of the time we as women are the one, when a guy goes to jail, we are the one who's going to visit him. So when we go to jail, the guy is usually not there. So we don't have anybody that's bringing our children to come see us. There's nobody there. There's no family visits set up for them. I feel that for a woman to have a small child, the first few years are very formative years, both for the child and the mother. And there should be some type of program set up where that child can remain with the mother. They're doing it in other states. California needs to get on board.
Oh, so California's just not doing it then? It does happen though in other states.
Yes, it does. Well, it's not just that. Being a mother myself and being incarcerated, you don't only miss your family, but your family is so far away because most of us come from poor families. So the families can't afford or they can't get to see you, so we don't get visits. They can't bring our children to see us. You know, to be inside and to see one of your children write you a letter and says, "Mom, why don't you come home?" or "When are you coming home?" Those are hard questions
because they
to
don't
ask.
understand.
I mean, we answer them, but
the best you can, right?
Yeah, but then when you're inside, the heart feeling warmth that you have as being a mother of anyone in society that has been a mother or a father that have children, you know how hard it is to be separated from your child or your children that long and then can't really give an explanation why they can't see you.
Linda,
they
you
don't
were gonna say
understand.
something heartbreaking, and
It
you're
is.
wondering,
They don't
where are
understand.
my kids? Like, what are they up to?
Exactly.
Where are they? Are they being fed? Are they
Exactly.
being clothed? Who's taking care of them?
I think that's one of the reasons that California Coalition for Women Prisoners has started a family visiting day. And this was the second year that it happened. Over 100 family members, children, mothers, grandmothers, aunties, close friends, if there wasn't a family member, visited women in prison for the first time. A lot of women received no visits. So the importance of regular visiting by CCWP volunteers and by family members through the family visiting program really cannot even be quantified. It makes such a difference to have visitors. And I was in prison in the federal system, and there, just like in California, you're very far away from your kids and your family.
When you go to prison, they send you very far away. All the women prisons, they're not close. They're very far away. Also, for the mothers that's in prison, if you're pregnant and you have a baby while you're in prison, I think you have, what, 48 hours?
48 hours to
and
spend
then
with your child.
To spend with your child.
No,
and then you have to send that child away from you. Not only do you have to send that child away from you, but you have to send that child away from you with somebody who has to meet all of these criteria. They make it very difficult, which is why there are so many children who are in foster care. Because even though they have family members who could take care of them, they may not fit those criteria. You know, you have to jump through a lot of hoops.
Yeah, Cynthia was mentioning that it's harder for families to get funding and also to become foster parents than it is for foster children. And also, just on what you were saying, I was reading that women who have visitors or women who don't have visitors are 6 times more likely to end back up in prison.
Yes.
But I was hearing you say CW volunteers, so some of our viewers could volunteer and come get involved and visit women in prison if they don't have family around. Is that?
We would urge anyone that's interested in supporting women in prison to contact California Coalition for Women Prisoners. And anybody that's been in prison or has a past conviction or has a family member in prison now could become active with All of Us or None, because we are really attacking some of the discriminatory policies that exist.
And one of the discriminatory policies that exist is one of the things that we are really working real diligently on right now through All of Us or None is the expungement. And what expungement is that there are some previous charges that are mandatory to be expunged off your record. But when you go into the courts and they're telling you, okay, when you get out of jail, you need to report to this person, and you need to pay this fine, and you need to go over here, and you need to go over there. Right. They never tell you that you can get this expunged off your record. And that's one of the things that All of Us or None is working on.
So is it federal offenses or just state offenses? How long before you can get, for those people who are out there who are watching and like, I want to do that, I want to do that, what do you have to do in order to get your record expunged?
It's really complicated, and what I would urge people to do is to go to our website, www.allofusornone.org, and contact us, because we have a lot of connections with legal clinics in East Palo Alto and San Mateo County, in the East Bay Community Law Center, Stanford Law Clinic's working with us.
Clinic, very diligent.
That is wonderful to hear, because we're talking about women in prison, and it just gets me so fired up, because you're in prison, you have to deal with, let's say you're pregnant. You're not getting any special care. You're older. You're not getting any special care. No. You got a toothache, pull that tooth out.
Yes.
Your $5 copayment to stand in a long line. You might have to deal with forced sterilization. I mean, this is not good stuff. But on the flip side, women do get out, and they find jobs. But they're getting taxed on that money, right?
Yes.
And after all that, they still can't vote. What is up with that?
You still, not only can you not vote, but you cannot go back to the prisons and give back. Like I, for one, I have been totally out of the prison system now for over 13 years, and I still cannot be approved to go back and visit anybody in a prison.
Oh, really?
No.
So
they will not
if you knew
approve
friends
me.
in there, or you
family members.
It could be your father, your mother, your daughter, your son. They no longer allow you, if you have a felony or a conviction of being in prison, you cannot go to a prison.
A social disease. I really feel that, I hope here on Talkback that after watching the show, you all realize that women in prison are in prison for nonviolent crimes. It is hell in prison,
Yes,
and it's
it
still
is.
hell when you get out.
Yes, it is.
So go visit a prison, I would say, really.
Yes.
I mean, to get involved with any of these organizations, go visit a prison.
Check out some of these women's organizations. All of Us Are None, Justice Now, the California Coalition of Women Prisoners.
Yes.
And right now, we're going to be having Taylor on the street talking to young people and folks about women in prison and seeing what they have to say. So check him out.
So we're in the student quad, everyone's having a good time, but unfortunately we've got to ask them about a kind of tragic subject, women in prison. Let's go see what they think. What's up?
I think by being a black single parent, I think that prison is not for me. My son is 14 years old. He need me right about now.
Okay.
I can't go to jail. And I wish all the women to stop going to jail, because we need our black women out here. I mean, I used to do a lot of things, but I never got caught up with it.
My son is in prison, but I know women that are in prison, and it's hard to never want to go back there again. That's why I'm here at school.
Oh, speaking of women in prison, my mother was in prison for murder. She told me that she was a female pimp, and she was selling drugs, and two guys tried to rob her for her drugs, and she ended up stabbing them. A lot of it behind drug addicts, female drug addicts that are in prison, because they, on countless occasions, they've been found with drugs, and then they boyfriends or husbands might have had to go to jail for selling drugs, and they tried to take on the profession like it really is a profession.
Seems to never be about making money, though. You know? It seems to be more about crimes of love or crimes of circumstance.
Yeah.
As soon as their baby is born while they're in prison, their baby is taken from them.
You keep throwing them into different institutions and into low-income schools because of the foster homes that they're in. Our community and our climate is going to keep making us go poorer and poorer.
In actuality, when a person is incarcerated, you're trying to rehabilitate them. What inspirational thing for you that will motivate you to do different things is your child. So if you take that child away from the mother, then their desire and their drive to make adjustments in life is depleted.
In the penal system, there needs to be like just a little more, care for women. A lot of them are mothers or soon to be mothers, and they need help really, really bad. Because when she goes to jail and has the baby, they go take that baby away and put that baby in CPS. And then she's gonna be really hurting. And she's really going to want to get her hands on some kind of narcotics, in or out, whenever, just in or out.
Well, it looks like we got everybody. But they went back to class, not back to prison. And I'm coming back to you.
Can you imagine a world without prisons? I can. I don't know about you, but I certainly have done a few things in my past. And just imagine if all of us got thrown in jail for little tiny crimes. I need a different world. What about you?
Yeah, I definitely don't think people should be demonized for doing something that's nonviolent. And it's, exactly like you're saying. How many of us have stole a pack of gum? Can you imagine going to jail for that? Homegirl got put in jail for stealing some hot dogs to feed her family.
Pantyhose? Come on.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I think speaking of all of us and what we can do too, another thing we were talking about is, okay, so maybe you don't have time to volunteer with any of these organizations or go visit these prisons. Hey, you can write a speech about women in prison. You can write a paper, impress everybody in your women in violence class. Or if you're a poet, write a poem about this. There's a lot of other things they can do, right?
You can boycott different companies that use prison labor. Don't spend money for slave labor. But we're going to learn more about that at Peralta.tv.
Yeah, get connected to some of these organizations and find out more about how you can volunteer, make a difference, and spread this positive word of doing something to make a difference in how we think about women in prison.
That's right. A new world.
So take care.
Bye.